Hi everybody, Miss Richmond here, and we're back to start simplifying fractions. So the first thing that I want us to focus on is, what does it mean to simplify fractions? Well, first of all, a fraction is in simplest form when the greatest common factor of a number, the greatest common factor of a numerator and a denominator is 1. So what does that mean, that the greatest common factor is 1? Well, let's use an example. So let's take the fraction 4/6. And what I'm going to ask you to do is to use your two color counters to show that you have 4 colors of red, and I'll shade those in darkly, and then 2 counters that are yellow. And I'll leave those blank. So I've got 6 counters, so I have a set of 6. 4 of them should be red or dark, and 2 of them will be yellow or white. So our definition of simplest form is that the greatest common factor of the numerator and denominator is 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to our U-turn factors. I'm going to look at what the factors of 4 and 6 are. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to list the factors of 4. So I can see that the factors of 4 are 1, 2, and 4. And I'm going to list those right here. 1, 2, and 4. These are all the factors that I can multiply together to get the number 4. I'm also going to list the factors of 6. So using my U-turn factor, I can see that the factors of 6 are 1, 2, 3, and 6. And I'll list those right here. 1, 2, 3, and 6. So what does it mean to be a common factor? Well, 1 is a common factor. It's a factor of both 4 and 6. We also see that 2 is a common factor. It's a factor of 4 and it's a factor of 6. Now, a fraction is in simplest form when the greatest common factor is 1. Well, we can see that the greatest common factor of 4 and 6 is not 1, it's 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to change 4/6 into a simpler fraction by dividing by that greatest common factor. So I'm going to start by dividing the denominator 6 by 2. So if I divide 6 by 2, I know that 6 divided by 2 is 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate equal sets of 2. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to circle groups of 2. And I was able to make 3 groups. You can see I have 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups. Now there are 2 counters in each group because 3 times 2 is 6. I'm now going to take that, excuse me guys, I'm now going to take that 4, and you can see that when I divide 4 by 2, that's going to make 2 groups. So you can see that I have 2 counters in each of these 2 groups. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now, the fraction 2/3, if I'm going to list the factors of each of these, and I come over here, I can see that 2 only has 1 and 2 as factors. 3 only has 1 and 3 as factors. Therefore, the only common factor of 2/3 is 1. So 4/6 is equal to 2/3, but 2/3 is in simplest form because the greatest common factor is 1. Let's do another example using our counters again. This time we're going to be using 6/8. So I'm going to have 8 counters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm going to shade 6 of them in. And you could be using the counters that are in your bag, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All right, so I'm going to see that I have 6 colored counters and 2 more that are either yellow or white. And again, I'm looking for a fraction in simplest form when the greatest common factor between the numerator and the denominator is 1. So I need to find the factors of 6 and the factors of 8. Well, let's head on over to our U-turn factors. And the factors of 6 are going to be 1, 2, 3, and 6. The factors of 8 we have found are 1, 2, 4, and 8. So as I'm looking at the list of factors for the numerator and the denominator, I always know that 1 will be a factor because 1 is a factor of every single number. I can also see that again, 2 is a factor of both the numerator and the denominator. Now, 2 is our greatest common factor. That's what we call our GCF, greatest common factor. And what I'm going to do is, like I did in the last one, I'm going to circle groups of 2 to show that I'm dividing both the numerator and the denominator by 2. So I'm going to circle groups of 2. And now I can see that instead of 8 counters, I can list this as 4 groups. I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. Of those 4 groups, 1, 2, 3 groups are shaded. You'll notice that 8 divided by 2 is 4, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. By circling groups of 2, that's showing that division. When I look at 3/4 and I go to list the common factors, the factors of 3 are 1 and 3. The factors of 4 are 1, 2, and 4. And this time, our greatest common factor is 1. So 3/4 is in simplest form. For the next example, we are going to use 3/9. 3/9. So again, a fraction is in simplest form when the greatest common factor of the numerator and denominator is 1. So let's take a look. What are the factors of 3? Well, I can see on my U-turn factors that the factors of 3 are 1 and 3. I can see in my U-turn factors for 9 that my factors are 1, 3, and 9. So if I am looking at the factors of 3/9, 1 is a common factor and 3 is a common factor of both of these numbers. So what I'm going to do to find the simplest form of 3/9 is I'm going to divide both my numerator and my denominator by that greatest common factor. And you'll hear it be called the GCF, the greatest common factor. So if I'm going to divide 3 by 3, well, 3 divided by 3 is 1. And 9 divided by 3, I know is 3. So my simplest form should be 1/3. Well, let's take a look at what the picture looks like of why 3/9 in simplest form will be 1/3. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my counters. I need 9 counters. 3 of them will be shaded. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm going to shade in 3 of them. Now, when we were dividing that 3 by 3 to get 1, and we were dividing that 9 by 3 to get 3, this is what we were doing. We're going to circle groups of 3 because that's what our greatest common factor is. So I'm going to circle groups of 3. Here's my first group of 3, my second group of 3, and my third group of 3. Now you can see in a visual way why 3/9 is equal to 1/3. I have 3 colored counters out of 9 total counters, but I could also say that I have 1 group that is colored versus 3 total groups. I know that 1/3 is going to be in simplest form because the only factor of 1 is 1. 3 has 1 and 3 as a factor, and my greatest common factor is now 1. Now that I've given you some examples of how you can take a fraction, list the common factors, and use a manipulative to help you visualize dividing the fraction by the greatest common factor. Remember, we're going to call that the GCF. Whatever the greatest common factor is, we're going to circle groups like that. So in 4/6, we're circling groups of 2. In 6/8, we're also circling groups of 2 because the greatest common factor is 2. But in 3/9, the greatest common factor wasn't 2, it was 3. So whatever the greatest common factor is, that's how many we're going to circle in each group. Now that we've gone through these examples and proven how we can simplify a fraction or put that fraction into simplest form, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and use your counters to practice finding the simplest form of 8/10, 3/6, 2/8, and 4/12. Good luck, and make sure that you email me any questions that you have, and we will get back together tomorrow. Have a great day.